Is it okay if I call you Tommy?
No. No.
Just Tom?
No one calls me Tom.
No, we call you Tom.
Most people call me Thomas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome to Between Two Bookcases. I'm Clay. I'm here with Thomas Trimble. Thomas is a lecturer in our composition program, and we're going to talk today about reflection. What is reflection?
What is reflection? Some people have difficulty defining a reflection, but I've been reading a lot of this writer named Jennifer Moon, British scholar, who talks about it as an action, as a type of action. It could be writing, it could be cognitive, it could be relational, but it's about that look back, a second look at behavior, at action, at learning, which is what we're often, maybe most often concerned about. But it takes many, many different forms. But it is sometimes hard to describe, and it's hard to define in the classroom. You know, many students have experiences with reflection, as many of us do, that feels a bit wishy-washy and navel-gazy. Yeah. So sometimes students like, oh, you want me to talk about my feelings, right?
Right.
Oh, you want me to tell me what a bad job I did, right?
Uh-huh.
You know, so that kind of like, oh, you want me to tell you about what my grandmother used to call me, right? It's kind of like maybe overly sentimental, non-instrumental kind of, ugh. So I think sometimes students think that. Sometimes we think that about reflection, so it bears some practice and some, maybe still has some definitional work.
So we have a definition here.
Oh,
Reflect.
convenient.
Well, so one definition of reflect is to turn into or away from a certain course. Turn into or away from a certain course.
We don't mean a class course. We mean like a direction.
Yeah, like a direction. To turn aside.
Like a boat.
To deflect, to divert.
See, that's why I quit using dictionaries. Too many naval references.
Decastment.
I mean,
to bend or fold back. To
yeah,
bend or fold
the
back.
look back, the second look.
A backward curve, a backward bend. To produce or show as a mirror does. To bring or cast as to bring about as an attribute. Not sure about that one.
Okay.
To make manifest or apparent as a likely cause, plausible conditioning factor, fitting background element, or concomitant.
That's why I don't use dictionaries.
Yeah.
I don't know what any of that means.
I don't know either. Well, to remember with thoughtful consideration.
That makes sense.
That one, thoughtful consideration.
I get that.
That's interesting.
Yeah. It takes, the idea there is that reflection requires, it's a practice.
Yeah.
It's a discipline.
What do you
but
mean
it
it's a
requires
practice?
Well, it doesn't, we
Baseball
sometimes
practice.
assume that reflection comes, that it's natural, that it is reflexive,
Yeah.
it's instinctual, and
Like-
it's not. It takes some, it takes some deliberate intention, and it takes time, and you have to give yourself space to do it. My friend Clay often talks about students who sometimes try and complete assignments with a search and destroy mentality.
Yeah, search and destroy.
It's like when we did worksheets when we were a kid.
Yeah.
So you can't really do reflection like that. You
No.
gotta take a breath. You have to take a drink.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers. And you have to sort of give yourself a little space to reflect. If you just, and the other mistake is maybe some students jump into I'm just trying to knock this out. I'll tell the, instructor what they want to hear, which
Yeah.
goes back to that, okay, what do you want kind of thing. If that's the mindset, reflection is
Who
almost
is it
always
for?
crappy.
Yeah, so who's the reflection for?
This is another problem because reflection should be for the learner.
Yeah.
For the person doing the reflecting, but then we get into this business in the classroom of going, well, I'm going to grade your reflection,
Yeah.
which makes it a bit inauthentic. So if you think about the way that we use reflection on our own lives, for those of us who journal or diary or stare at our navels or just like to sit out on the porch and think about how things are going,
Yeah.
if they said, okay, so go
Well,
ahead and
that's
do this, but then someone's going to show up in 10 minutes and give you a grade.
Yeah.
You're like, it's very unnatural to evaluate or have people evaluate our reflection.
So there's a tension. Okay, there's
There
a
is a
tension
tension.
between your reflecting is for yourself,
Yes.
thoughtful, looking back with thoughtful consideration.
Yes.
come back with thoughtful consideration. And you're looking back at what you've done, and you say it's not a reflex. To reflect is not a reflex. It's a practice.
It is a practice.
Something you develop.
Well, I don't know. I guess so. There is some. Let me backtrack. I guess some reflection is natural, that we do it all the time. So after you and I have this conversation, I'll walk back to my office and I'll go, "Huh? How'd that go?" That's reflection.
Yeah. Okay.
Or I might go, "Wow, if I got a chance to do this again, I might wear something different.
Okay.
I might choose a different mug.
Yeah.
I might try and be funnier."
Yeah.
That's reflection.
Well, that would, yeah.
So that would be helpful, maybe. So, some of that. But I guess when we bring writing into it, we try and go through different stages and depths, levels of depth for reflection. Maybe that doesn't come as easily.
People often use the word metacognition when they talk about writing.
That's a big word.
Why don't they call it megacognition?
Megacognition. Because that would be like big.
Yeah. What is metacognition?
Metacognition is thinking about thinking. If we think about meta as, writing about thinking about thinking. And I think it refers to cognitive processes in which we try and keep track of our thinking. We try and evaluate our thinking. We try and monitor our thinking. Some of these verbs come from the literature on metacognition.
Yeah.
And the argument goes is that reflection is a good way to not only develop but to practice metacognition. It's a way of developing metacognition.
So what's the value of metacognition?
So the idea is metacognition, the ability to think metacognitively, really is what separates novices from experts.
The ability to use cognition.
To be aware of one's own thinking. So for example, in my classes, what I'll often do is I'll often show the scene from Talladega Nights.
Yeah.
Well, Will Ferrell's character won his first race. And they ask him a bunch of questions, and he can't answer the questions. He doesn't know where to put his hands. They ask him questions about his technique or his strategy, and he just says, "I gotta go fast."
Well, because he didn't expect to be a driver.
He has no vocabulary.
He was in the crew, right?
That's right.
And there was an incident, and all of a sudden he had to take over and drive to finish the race.
But he has no vocabulary. He has no way to think about.
He was a novice.
Yes, he has no way to think about and talk about his racing, other than I go fast. And then there's this other level of I'm being interviewed about my performance, and I don't really know how to talk about it.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with my hands. So.
Well, how to be?
I don't know how to be.
It's not just how to do something with your hands, right?
So contrast that with an expert athlete, let's say a baseball pitcher, and they talk to the pitcher after the game, and he says, "Well, my arm slot was da 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 da, my fastball was really doing this da da da." And they have that vocabulary; they can talk about it. The way that a novice, or if you talk to an 8-year-old kid who's playing baseball or softball, they can't do that.
So how is that? What's the meta?
The meta is that, again, kind of that ability to revisit and reappraise, and not only to plan for the future. Go, so next time I do this, I'll make sure that I do X, Y, and Z.
So with the baseball
pitcher, or I won't do A, B, and C.
With the baseball pitcher example, so someone who, Will Ferrell on Talladega Nights is a novice. He knows how to drive fast, but he doesn't necessarily how to talk. Shake and bake, baby.
Was Burt Reynolds in that movie?
I think it's modeled on.
Yeah.
His spirit.
I really like Burt Reynolds.
He's great. He's great. He's such a champion for social justice. That's what I like about Burt Reynolds. He often gets undersold that way.
Do you ever have students write about Smokey and the Bear?
That kind of stuff. Yeah, let's go. Yeah, keep going.
So look, Will Ferrell.
Yes, he's a novice.
He's a novice.
He has talent.
He can drive fast.
Oh, yeah.
He's got some talent, but it's not developed. And he wins, and it's reckless, and it's not a pretty win.
But he's not yet developed the ability to think metacognitively about his.
So and that limits his ability, what, to talk about?
To develop.
To
get better.
To get better as a driver.
Yes, that's right. And over the course of the film, through trials and tribulations, his journey, he becomes more.
He becomes able to talk at a high level.
That's correct.
To talk at a high. What does it mean to talk at a high level? To be able to what?
I'm thinking more about just depth, and a vocabulary to. So he becomes more aware about the technical vocabulary of being a driver.
Yeah.
And of being a celebrity. as you said a minute ago, his ability to be.
Yeah.
Now that's the running gag of that movie because he ends up inhabiting these stereotypes of the regional race car driver.
Yes.
So it's sometimes easy for us to kind of fall into patterns or stereotypes about ourselves. Oh, I'm this person, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think reflection metacognition is also a technique that we use to keep ourselves honest. That's not me, It can be used that way as well.
You ask students to develop metacognition in the classroom?
In my course, I don't use, I experimented with using the term metacognition, and I stopped.
Okay, what do you do?
It just seemed like it was too much baggage, there was too much work to unpack that term.
Okay.
Students were not transferring that term,
Not
they
enough
weren't
payoff.
using it in their own writing, so I just go with reflection, and I talk about Talladega Nights.
So tell me, give me your pitch. I'm a
All right.
freshman student in your 10th.
Okay, so this semester I'm teaching English 30/20,
Okay.
which is a version of intermediate writing with community-based program. Oh.
We just got that.
So this student in my 30/20 class came up to me at the beginning of the semester after our first reflection, at the beginning of the semester, and said, you know what, I was in 10/20 last semester, and my instructor asked us to do reflection, said it was going to help us be better writers, in the future. I mean, doesn't that sound a little far-fetched? So she was kind of pushing on me, like saying, well, are you telling me we're going to do reflection in here too? And so this is like after class, right? So,
Yeah.
She's in a rush, I'm getting ready to go. And I said, well, we should talk about this. But I'm like, I agree with your 10/20 professor. I do think that this can help. You not only become a better writer, but I think it can help you develop a different kind of relationship with writing and all learning. So, no, I don't think it's far-fetched. So we didn't have time. If I had time, and we still need to we still need to have that conversation about, again, that distinction between novice and experts. Now, for students, I think this is the big pitch. That is, if we can establish one of the big differences between novices and experts is the ability to think and reflect and to think metacognitively about the work we do.
Right.
So this is something that you want to be able to do. Thinking
Yeah.
metacognitively, using reflection to look back at learning experiences and to project into the future. This is one of the skills you will need. If we can make that pitch effectively for students, then I think we can maybe short-circuit it or defer this thing about, oh, I get this. This is English class. We're going to write about, my favorite pet or whatever.
Or my favorite movie.
Yeah.
Cannonball Run.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
How do you do it in class? What do your assignments look like?
I start early in the semester with basic, very short 10 to 15 minute writing activities right at the beginning of class, asking students to reflect on either prior writing experiences, prior experiences with education. There's an early prompt that I ask students, I say, at some point, many students have the experience where they enjoyed school as young children, and then around middle school or high school, people start to sour. But we don't often think about what were the actual experiences that led to that. Maybe you became interested in more things. Maybe you started listening to heavy metal music. Maybe you started hanging out with partiers or something.
Yeah.
So you became less interested in school. Maybe you had a teacher that wasn't very nice.
Yeah.
So maybe you had a significant failure in a course.
Yeah.
So think about that, and then we try and go, well, and make connections, and then it gets more detailed and more specific to the actual course as the prompts.
Okay.
Yes.
So what's
Reflect
a
on
mid-level? What's a mid-semester?
So a few weeks ago, students turned in their very first major project.
Yep.
It was due on the weekend when they came into class early in the week on Tuesday.
Yeah.
I asked them to write a letter to future students of the course, saying, if you were going to do this, what are your tips and suggestions now that to a future student, you're going to get this assignment, here was my experience, here's what I would suggest to you.
Yeah.
So that's a way for them to kind of reflect on their experience, but also to turn it around to some specific suggestions for future students.
And
I've also had a version of that where they just basically reflect on, what was your experience like with this assignment? What went well? What didn't go well?
Yeah.
What would you like to do differently next time? And then we kind of come back to that. So the next time the next project comes in, let's go back and look at that first reflection.
Oh.
You said you wanted to...
Have them go back to the reflections in the middle of the semester.
You said you wanted to experiment with less, what are the kids on these days? The Twitter?
The
Snapchat?
Snapchat, Instagram.
So, for instance, a student says, I'd like to
Yak.
spend less time on the Snapchat when I'm writing my second page. It's like, well, how did that go? let's go back and, you said you wanted to spend less time in the Snapchat?
Yeah.
What happened?
What happened?
So those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Class.
Do you ever use mirrors to help students reflect?
No, I was thinking about that when you were reading the thing about as a metaphor, the mirror as a metaphor.
Yeah.
You know, look at yourself in the mirror.
All right.
Class.
This has been great.
Well, thanks a lot, Thomas.
Clay,
Appreciate it.
nice to meet you.
Good luck this semester. Appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
You got a great crew here. I just want to say, this is really, I thought this was going to be really kind of ramshackle, but it's really, anyway. So,
Do you like the books?
yeah, some of them get my allergies going though, because I've been here a long time.
Well, they're new.